Exodus 20, verse 13. You shall not murder. You shall not murder. Recently in the Philippines, the trial has begun for a man named Andal Ampatuan. He is being accused of leading a group of armed men who are said to have stopped a convoy that contained 57 politicians and journalists in Maguindanao and had all of them shot dead. This is one of the things that is going on in the news in the Philippines. In Japan, there is one suicide every 15 minutes. In America, there is an incredible 16,000 murders every year. Not only murders that are committed in the course of rape and in the course of robbery, but also murders that are planned out, that are premeditated. Murders that are brought about by adults and even by children, as we have seen in the Columbine tragedy. The first sin in the Bible was the disobedience of Adam and Eve in the garden as they ate the forbidden fruit. But what is the second sin that is recorded in the Bible? The first sin quickly led to the second sin, and that is the sin of murder. In chapter 4 of Genesis, we read about one brother who let the hatred grow up in his heart to the point that he killed the other brother. And murder has been with us ever since. There is a tendency for us, especially for those of us who live in America and in Japan, to say that murder is something that is a part of an uncivilized past. It is something that we are gradually overcoming as our society becomes more civilized and as we evolve. We look back to the things that happened in the Roman arena, where the gladiators would kill people for the entertainment of paying crowds. And we say, we're over all that sort of stuff. We think about the things that went on in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany, and we say, all of that is over. Now we're a people of peace. We look back at the people who burned their children to the god Moloch in Canaan, and we say, yeah, that's something that is utterly gone these days. And we conveniently overlook the 250,000 babies that are slaughtered every year in the womb. We are no less murderers than those who came before us. All of us have a problem with this commandment. All of us have a sinful nature in Adam. We are people who hate by nature. And this hate we allow to grow up in our heart to the point that it becomes real murder, physical murder. So in this sermon, we're going to answer one question. We're going to talk about the question, what is murder? And we're going to talk about what the Sixth Commandment does and does not prohibit. What is this commandment about? A lot of times when you hear people, Americans particularly, talk about the Sixth Commandment, they will quote it just like this. They will say, "Thou shalt not kill." That is how it is translated in the King James Version of the Bible. That is how many of us learned it when we were little. But what I would like for you to consider today is that there is a better translation than that. It is better to say, "You shall not murder," rather than saying, "You shall not kill." Murder is fundamentally a better translation of the word in the original language. When you look at this word that is translated murder here in the Sixth Commandment, and then you compare it to everything else that's written in the Bible, you can get a pretty good understanding for how this word is used and what it means. This word is never used to talk about killing animals. If you're talking about killing an animal, then you'll use a different sort of word. It is always used to describe some sort of unlawful killing, and is closest to what we would call murder. It is some sort of killing that is absolutely morally wrong. So bear this in mind as we start to talk about some common misconceptions that are associated with this commandment. A lot of times you'll see this commandment used to teach all sorts of things. There are a lot of people who look at the Sixth Commandment and they say, "Thou shalt not kill," Therefore, I should not kill any animals. And so I must be a vegetarian. And I can't have leather for my shoes. What do you think? Well, you already know the answer, don't you? You already know from what I've just said the answer to that question, because there's a separate word that is used for killing animals. And so that's not what this commandment is talking about. And we often see that God allows us to kill animals. God says in Genesis chapter 9, verse 3, "Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything." And so God allows us to eat meat. Eating meat is something that is not forbidden. And you see the Israelites eating meat, and you see, and there's good indication to believe that Jesus himself ate meat. So, when you look at this commandment, you shouldn't think that you must be a vegetarian, according to the Bible. There are some people that don't like to eat meat for health purposes, and they believe that that makes them more healthy. That's fine. But this is not some sort of commandment that God has given to you. You're allowed to eat freely of all of the animals. The Sixth Commandment does not prohibit the killing of certain criminals. In the 1960s in America, there was a big movement to eliminate the death penalty. And so you saw a lot of people saying that we just can't have the death penalty anymore. This is something that is part of the world's barbaric past, and we have evolved into a more perfect kind of humanity. And so now we need to stand up against the death penalty. We can't have it anymore. And good, decent, and fashionable people must take a stand against the death penalty. That was what was said in the 1960s by a lot of people. A lot of Christians started to come to that same conclusion. Now, they didn't go about it in exactly the same way as some other people. They didn't say that we have evolved past it. But they did say that the death penalty should be eliminated because that sort of thing no longer applies in this age. So Christians who were against the death penalty would often say that there are different periods in history. And each of these periods, each of these ages, each of these times had a set of rules and regulations that were associated with that time. And the set of rules and regulations that were associated with one particular time would not apply in another time. So all those laws that Moses had, none of that applies to you today. You are under the command to love, and that's all Christ told you to do. And so love obviously doesn't include the death penalty, and so we should not have the death penalty. This is how some Christians started to think about the death penalty, especially beginning in the 1960s. But you need to understand that the moral law, the Ten Commandments, isn't something that changes from age to age. Not only is it wrong to murder people in the age that was past, it is also wrong to murder people in the age that we have right now. And the punishment that was for murder in the past ages is the one that applies now as well. If you look back to Genesis chapter 9, verse 6, this is what you read. "Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image." Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. If you understand this verse, you're going to understand a lot about the death penalty. And indeed, you're going to understand a whole lot about the Sixth Commandment as well. The first thing that you need to know is that these were words that were spoken to Noah. When did Noah live? It was a long time before Moses ever lived, right? Yeah, Noah was before Moses. And so these people who are telling you that the law of Moses no longer applies today have more to deal with. Because this commandment, the commandment that is associated with the death penalty, was given even before Moses.